Okay, today we are presenting Reduce Your Risk with Arbela Audit and Security Manager. We are here with Christine Walsh, AX Security and Audit Consultant, and Dave Heinrich, Security and Compliance Consultant, Arbela. Please, let's get the presentation started. Dave and Christine, you're good to go.
Hey everyone, my name is Dave Heinrich. Like Coy said, I am a security and compliance consultant here at Arbela. I've been working in the security space and dynamics for about 5 years across different partners and ISVs, and I'm happy to be here today.
And I'm Christine Walsh, and I'm on the security and compliance team at Arbela as an audit and security consultant. And for the past 6 years, I've been focused on just security, starting with AX 2012 and now moving on to D365 finance and operations. I'm also part of the development team for the Arbela Audit and Security Manager, which is what Dave and I are going to highlight some of the new features we have. So with that, let's go ahead and get started, Dave.
All right, so before we get into the demo, I just wanted to give you guys a high-level overview of what we're covering today and take a look at Audit and Security Manager as a whole. So first off, we're going to look at some of the overall features of Audit and Security Manager. I'm sure that not everyone here has seen everything, so it will be good to recap what the tool does. And as Christine mentioned, we are going to be looking specifically at our newer security management features. And with that, we have our summary of capabilities. Essentially what we do is bucket our primary functionality into 3 different areas. The first is audit reporting and preparation. These are things like our user access reports, our Power BI workspaces, our user change logs, our reports on who has access to what functionally significant actions. Basically anything that you would hand off to an auditor. We report very heavily in all facets of the software. The second is management of risk and compliance. This contains our segregation of duties rules, our access controls, and access controls, for those who don't know, are just checks against who has access to certain high risk or high importance features throughout the system. So think like your post buttons, your vendor payment journal, things like that. Also, we have data monitoring, which is basically just database logging, the ability to track changes to tables and fields throughout the system. And for all of these things, we have the ability to archive the results, save them for posterity, hand them off to auditors as needed. And the third area, which we are going to be focusing on more heavily today, is security management. And these are our tools which will allow you to better manage your users, your security roles, understand licensing, make adjustments to licensing, make adjustments to user and security, all of that stuff that will make your lives a lot easier. So with that said, I will hand off to Christine to go through the first few functions here we see on the screen, which are the temporary user role assignment, enhanced user and legal entity assignment, user activity monitoring, security access details, and then I will take over at the end for security analysis for task recordings and license analysis. So Christine, would you like to begin?
Perfect, thank you. So we're going to go straight into the Audit and Security Manager, and we're going to start with the temporary role assignment. So how often do you get the question, can I give somebody else's access while they're away on vacation, or they're away sick, or any amount of time? And the IT department assigns the user the role assignments, but then also probably struggles with remembering to go and remove that access. So with this assign temporary roles, it does all that for you. You actually do have to come in and set it up still, but it will turn it on and turn it off, give the access, and then remove the access automatically for you, so you don't have to put an alert on your phone or however you're going to notify yourself that you need to come back and manage this. So let's go ahead and select a user. Let's say we're going to select Artie there. And then we'll do the assign roles. And here you'll see, just like in the user form, when you're assigning a role, you get the list of all the roles available to assign. So if you know that user only needs a couple of roles and you know what they are, you can certainly just select them and then select OK. But you could also copy somebody's assignment. So you're going to replace somebody's activities while they're away. And it's just like you would do in the user form. Up at the top, you would select a user to copy. Yep, and then let's just go ahead and copy Alicia. And there you see all her roles are highlighted there. And now we need to fill in our validate from date and our validate to date. So, and then you want to put a reason. There is a temporary, assigned temporary role report. So you do want to put the reason why so it comes out on the report. Select OK.
So here what it's doing is it's just flagging that this temporary assignment would be in violation of one of our segregation of duties rules. So that's just one of the preventative controls that we have in Dynamics. So in this case, what we would do is just remove one of those roles based on the need, or go ahead and evaluate, what other security that Arnie might have. So for this example, we'll just remove one of these roles. Or we're going to pick a different user for this example.
Sorry about that. Dave, let's just go ahead and select somebody that's already in there, maybe.
All right.
Okay. So now it's been set up that Brad will now get the accounting manager on the on September 28th, and it will be removed from him on October 2nd. And if we had copied somebody's assignment, then their name would show up under the role assigned from. So then if we go over to the report, and this is what the report would look like. So if you needed to go back in time, maybe there was a question about something, somebody could come back and say, oh, that wasn't the person that usually does that task. They were on vacation. This other person actually was in charge of that. So it's a great report and great tool to have. So let's go and look at the assign roles and legal entities then. Just to let you know, this is one of my favorites. So when you're in the user form and you're given the task to assign users their new user role assignments, it's a pretty tedious job sometimes, especially when you have entities to take into account. You actually have to go to another form to give that one role to certain entities and then come back out and give go to the next role and assign the exact same entities. A pretty tedious job. So what this does is make it a little bit quicker. So let's say you're doing a new implementation and you need to assign your users to their accesses. So let's say, let's go ahead and check April. Okay, I didn't see you change that, Dave. Sorry. He has April. He's assigning the roles, and now he can select however many entities all in one little click. And then he'd say assign selection. You have an opportunity to review it, select them all, and select apply. And that is it. And if you go back to the standard mode, we can go over to Arnie. This would be in the case where you've already assigned your users to roles, but now you've discovered, oh, we need to limit their access to the entity, right? So here in the middle, you see that Arnie is assigned to all these roles. The very first one, collections agent, he has access to all entities. For the accounts receivable clerk, he has access to certain entities. And so that's where, over on the right-hand side there, is where you would assign the users to more entities or remove them. The other item that I like, is my favorite, is you can unassign roles in just one click. So you can select them all, unassign roles. It does not remove the system user. By default, when you import a new user, you automatically get the system user role. And so, you know, if you're doing out of the box roles and somebody has 20 roles that you would like to remove, you can just, with confidence, select them all and know that your system user will not be deleted. And so you don't have to peck through and unclick that one. This I use often when I am testing. So I have my test account. I can assign the roles fairly quickly that I want to test, and I can also remove them quickly and move on to my next testing that I need to do. So this is one of my favorite items. The next item is the activity monitoring, which has become a favorite also of some of our customers. So you have to do a little bit of a setup. Activity monitoring is actually monitoring and logging every single click a certain user performs in D365. You can name the user. Down below, you'll see Alicia. She's actually been named. We're going to monitor all her access from that date to that date, right? You have to turn it on and turn it off, but we're going to monitor it. Up at the top, so you have your users you can monitor, your named users, or you can also monitor your sysadmin users. This is excellent because you may have multiple users with the sysadmin access, and you want to know what are they selecting, where are they going, what are they doing, and this will track everything. So you'll do a little bit of setup here, and then we'll go over to the inquiry that actually does the logging, or reports the logging, I should say. And this is it. And you can see we've had it turned on, so you can see that everything that Dave has clicked on since we began. Okay, great. The ASM tool has several different types of reports, And we're going to take a closer look at this, the access level by user. It gets asked very often, I just want to report with my users and all the accesses that they have. And Microsoft Reports and D365 out of the box does not have that to the level of the duty, the privilege, and the permission level. This report does. So you'll see we have the user, we have the role, the duty, and the privilege, and then far over to the right is the access level. It's all in one report. You have all your users. In this particular form, you can filter by any particular user or by a role, but this is a very nice report. There are several other reports. You can also do it by role. Maybe you're just beginning an implementation and you want to know the details of a role, right? What are the duties? What are the privileges? How do I know that role that I want to give that individual, what's in it, so I can review it ahead of time? That gets asked very often, and you'll be able to find that all here. So those are my highlights. I'm going to turn it over to Dave. His are a little bit more exciting than mine, but it's a great tool, and it's a great saver of time when you're doing an implementation, when you're troubleshooting security. Yeah, you'll just save a lot of time rather than sticking with the out of the box that Microsoft has to offer with all the different security diagnostics and security configuration that you have to flip-flop back and forth to. You'll find all your information just in one place right here. So there you go, Dave. Let's hear about task recording.
All right, thanks, Christine. So the next feature that we are going to show you guys today is security analysis for task recordings. For those of you who don't know, Microsoft took a stab at something like this way back when with D365, and they created this tool called security diagnostics for task recordings. And the idea behind that was that you could leverage task recordings to understand what security would be involved in those task recordings, which are generally business processes. And you could then, see if your users are missing permissions, if they needed to have security roles assigned to complete the task recording, things like that. The tool, though, fell short in some ways. It doesn't give you any listings of user access to those recordings. It doesn't give you a comprehensive list of all the security objects. It doesn't give you licensing. It doesn't give you access level, and it only allows you to really view the task recording on a per user basis. So what we did at Arbela with our product was we really fleshed out that idea, and we built a much larger tool that can take the task recordings, analyze them, and allow you to assign security accordingly. So the first thing you'll do is click Browse up here, and then select one of your task recordings, which must be saved as an XML. So when you do your task recording, just make sure you click Save as Developer Recording. You'll click Process File, and then you can see we got a whole lot of information here. And for those who are familiar with the standard out-of-the-box security diagnostics for task recordings, you'll know that you get about 2 or 3 columns here, and that's it. But we will look at this one piece at a time so it all makes sense. So over here on the left, under results, we have a list of all of our menu items which were captured in the task recording. And where applicable, we also include the menu path, so we can see how the users access certain menu items in the task recordings. We also include the type, so we have display menu items, output menu items, action menu items. Those are all 3 different types of menu items in Dynamics. Like I mentioned earlier, the out-of-the-box tool doesn't capture your action menu items, and action menu items are very important. Not only are they often the most difficult menu item types to identify from a security perspective, they're also usually some of the most important things, like posting vendor payments, generating payments, confirming sales orders. All those things are action menu items. So our tool does capture those. Over here, we have the access levels for each of the menu items, and it's listed as they were used in the task recordings. So for here, we can see for the all vendors menu item, we have grant across the board from read all the way up to delete, which means in the task recording, the user had full access to this menu item. Similarly, if we were only to open the vendor form but not interact with it, we would only show grant on read access here. What we can also do with the access levels is manipulate them here, and we can refresh the role relationships, and this will change all the information we see on the page here with respect to security roles and licensing to reflect the roles and licensing at that particular access level. And you can see here with the license types that the access level usually does change, or the license type usually does change based on the access level. So if we had a view, or if we have view access, typically we'll have a team member's license. Whereas if you are having full control, so grant across the board, you'll typically need a higher level license like operations. If this was the only information you cared about, you can select your menu items here, and you can click Assign Entry Point, and you'll get a filtered view of the security diagnostics form, which will give you all of the related security objects which have access to that menu item. So what we could do is just, the standard form, we could click the role, click Add Roles to User, and assign just access to the vendor payment journal right here. But the tool gets a lot better as we go on. So over here to the right, we have role statistics. What this tab is showing us is a ranking of the roles that best fit this task recorder. So up at the top here, we have a match percent, which it effectively is that ranking. So it's the number of included menu items versus the number of missing menu items. So we can see that the accounts payable payments clerk role is the best fit role out of the box for this task recording. It has the most number of menu items against any other role, which is 4. It is missing 3. And it has 1,023 excessive menu items, meaning menu items which are not captured in this task recording. Now, of course, you're going to want to know, what are these 4 included? What are these 3 missing? So scrolling over here to the right, we have tabs for each of those. So if we select our role, we will have our 4 included menu items here that the role does have. We can also see below which specifically from the task recording that we're missing by selecting this role. And then down here at the bottom, we have the comprehensive list of every single other permission that this role has. Obviously, you can see these are huge lists. You're never going to scroll through, 1,000 menu items or 6,000 in some cases. But what this does is it allows you to keyword search. So if you wanted to understand maybe check to see if this has some unrelated confirm button or some post button, you can do that. But really the main advantage to us showing this excessive menu item count here is to give you an understanding of how big this role is. So like, what is the scope of this role? So obviously we know that we're going to be assigning some access that's listed here from our task recorder, but what else in the system would the role grant access to? So in the case of like these two right here, where we have the accounting manager and the accounts payable manager, they both have the same 3 included menu items. They both have the same 4 missing menu items. Which one would we want to grant to our users? Well, what we can do is look over here at the excessive column, and we can see that the accounts payable manager is, less than half the size of the accounting manager. So if we're granting security in a least permissive manner, like we probably should be, we're going to want to grant the accounts payable manager, all other things equal, to our user in order to grant them far less other access outside the scope of what is included in this task recording. So once you have identified the role that you would like to assign, you can simply click manually assign users. It will then open a standard assign users to roles form. You'll select your users, click assign, and then you're done. There's two primary use cases for this feature. The first is on implementations. When you are building out your business process library using task recorders, or task recording, sorry, you can actually take those task recordings, upload them to this tool, and then have a very clear understanding of what security your users would need to be assigned in order to perform their job functions. This cuts out a ton of time for whoever's managing security, because they don't need to hop into every form, click security diagnostics, take a list of roles and then do the testing. If you can leverage those task recordings, all you got to do is pop them in here, and then you'll know exactly what roles you need to assign to your users in order to grant them the permissions to do their job. The second main use case, which I actually use quite a lot, is troubleshooting. So there may be times when you're working with the global address book or with some funky buttons, and you can't really pin down what the menu items are, and therefore what security privileges, duties, and roles may grant access to them. So you would you'd have to do a lot of trial and error to actually identify those things. So what you can use this tool for is a way to shortcut all that troubleshooting, and basically you can just start a task recording. You can go click that menu or that button or whatever, the table. Then you can simply upload it to the tool, and you'll get all the related information. You'll get the menu item, you'll get the related duties and privileges and roles and all that good stuff. And that way, you don't have to spend hours, testing or telling the user, hey, try again, I assigned you a new role. You have all the information there, and there's no second guessing. Okay, the next feature that we're going to show you is our license analysis dashboard. And this was developed by popular demand because I think probably everyone knows that there's not a whole lot that Microsoft provides out of the box with respect to licensing information or analysis. So what we did was we built out this form here, which contains some quick snapshots of some high-level license and user information. And also has the ability to, really drill down into that information and get some valuable insights into your licensing consumption, why certain people have the licenses they do, and maybe how you can reduce that license level or license counts. But we'll start at the top here in our charts. So the first one that we're looking at is total roles by license type. So this is just your licensing consumption by the security roles that you've created. So we'll click one here, operations, and this is effectively just the number of roles we have in the system, which are of operations type, so the highest level. By clicking this bar here, we populated this drill down, and this drill down tab filters to those 91 roles. So what we're seeing here is all of the roles which are operations type. Okay, we can also dump that out to Excel for analysis. If we wanted to get the 17, the 17 which are activity, just click it again. We have that smaller list here. Similarly, and more importantly, in my opinion, over here we have the count of license type by user. So this is your license consumption by user. This translates directly to cost. So we can see in this environment, we have 92 operations users, we have 12 activity users, and 18 team members users. Like the first bar chart, you can click any of these charts and populate the drill down. Right, so you can get the list of users who do have these license types, just like that. Very useful and easy to get. The only other way out of the box to get this is to download a report, which is not very pretty, and you'd have to manipulate it to get it into a nice clean list like this. The next graphic we have up here is count of user by status. So this is just a simple count of all of the users that exist within the system that are enabled, and as well as the users who are disabled. In our test environment, we don't really have a lot of diversity here, but you can, again, select any of these bars and get those lists of users. Up here to the right, we have the role assignment summary. So these are just some quick insights into some of the interesting metrics around your role assignment. So we have a list of sysadmin users here. So we can see that 13 of our total users have sysadmin role assigned. We can get that list here. We can see a list of users without roles in the system. So, these are probably our candidates for termination. If they don't have roles, they're obviously not doing anything. And we have roles without users here. And this just gives us a list of all the security roles which are not assigned to any users. So in this case, maybe these are the roles we can clean up out of the system, make our configuration nicer, tidy it up, because obviously no one's using them. And then finally over here, we have our list of dormant users. And these are just some time ranges for user inactivity within the system. So we can see users who haven't logged in for greater than 180 days, between 120 and 180 days, between 90 and 120 days, all the way down to 60 and 90 days. The use here is to understand, if users aren't logging into the system, are they, one, just not doing their job, or two, have they been let go from the company and should they be terminated? So it just allows you to get some quick business insights and maybe make some decisions from an IT perspective, keep things clean. All right, and finally, the cool part down here is the analysis information tab. What this does is it allows us to understand who has what licenses, and also allows us to evaluate that information and understand maybe where we can cut back on license types, where we could maybe make some security modifications to cut down on license consumption, bring someone down from an operations level to an activity level, for example, all that good stuff. So up here we have we have two filters. We have our user license type filter, which is where you select the type of license that you want to analyze. And then we have maximum roles per user. And what this does is gives us those users who only have a maximum number of whatever we have here of this license type. So these two in conjunction is giving us a list of all of our users who only have one operations license, meaning they only have one role that's an operations level. So, and meaning if we would remove that one role from any one of these users, then they would no longer be in this operations tier. They would now be down here in activity or team members or wherever their next highest security role was. Okay, I'm gonna filter out the system admins here. We have quite a few in this environment. And so now we're just looking at our real users in the environment and what security roles they have. So again, this list is filtered to those users who have at most one operations role. Over here, we have this count context resources column. This is really just kind of a fancy word for the menu items and entry points that they have. So we can look at someone like Janet, who has this accounting manager role, or Lars, who has this production supervisor, and we can see, they have in triple-digit menu item access. We're probably not going to be able to trim out 113 menu items from this guy's role because he probably does need a good chunk of this. That's why it's assigned. That's like a true operations role. But if we scroll through this list, we're going to see that there are folks who have these roles with far fewer operations menu items. Down here, we have a couple really good candidates for to drop down from a licensing perspective. We have Prakash and Reina, and these two users have the project manager role. So this is their only operations role, which has access to only one operations menu item. So what that means is if this role didn't have this one menu item, then it would no longer require an operations license. So the question is, does Prakash really need that one menu item in this role that's making him an operations user? Well, we can evaluate that by clicking the display details. And we can scroll down here to license analysis details, and we can actually get the information for this role and this one menu item, okay? So for the project manager role, he has this duty, privilege, and menu item right here, which is making the role an operations license level. So theoretically, if we strip this menu item out of this privilege, and therefore this duty, and therefore this role, then Prakash would no longer require an operations license. So the question then becomes, from a business perspective, is, does Prakash really need the project budget revision? If the answer is no, then we can simply remove this menu item and Prakash will no longer be an operations user. Maybe the answer is yes, he does need the project budget revisions, but he only needs to see them. Well, we can look over here and see for this menu item, to have just view only, it only requires a team member's license. So then what we can do is we can modify this menu item access, drop it down to read only, and now Prakash only requires a team member access license for this role, whereas before he would have needed an operations license. So that's just one example of the many ways you can slice and dice this form up here with the different license types and maximum number of roles per user. But it's one of the best use cases. That's everyone likes to cut down on license cost, and operations is of course the most expensive. And those folks who are barely making into the operations threshold, those with only one role, right? That's what we'd really want to look at here. And that wraps up my bit here on license analysis. So I will hand it over to Coy for questions.
All right. Thank you, Dave and Christine. At this time, we'll take any questions you have. And once again, please submit your questions in the Windows questions below in your control panel. Okay, so we do have a few questions coming in. The first question is that, are there reports for licensing analysis?
Yes, there are. So we do have this analysis dashboard here, but we also have within ASM, under licensing, we have license details by role and license details by user. These look very similar to those access details reports that Christine touched on earlier. But it basically will have everything with the user ID, their role, their duty, the privilege, the menu items, and at what access level they have those menu items. And then, all the way down here, you can get the license information as well. So yeah, you could filter here if you just wanted to see, what certain users have, any way you want to look at it. And then of course, we have the same for role.
Great. Thank you, Dave. So the second question is that, is there a way to purge records from the user activity monitoring log? I can imagine that getting very big.
Yes, there is. We have a parameter which you can set that allows you to specify an aging period for those records. And basically what that means is that if you specify an aging period of 30 days, that means once those records reach 30 days of age, they are then eligible to be purged from the log. And you can set that job to run on a periodic basis. So, it checks every 30 days or whatever you want it to be on. And that is the same type of functionality that we have for our archive, for the access control, segregation of duties, data monitoring. We have the ability to purge the records out of the logs, take backups of them, and all that good stuff.
Awesome. Thank you again. We do have a last question. Let's see here. Do you have reports that shows what changes made to the vendor's master data?
Yeah, it's not a report so much per se, but what we have is data monitoring, and this is the ability to track any changes made to the vendor master. So we actually have an out of the box rule here under data monitoring. We'll scroll down here to vendor data. And we can specify our tables, then we can select all the fields within those tables. So I went quickly, but up here we have like the vend table. And so what we can do is then, audit or monitor any changes made to this table in the selected fields. And then we can view all of that within our data monitoring log here. And this will show you all those changes made. So I have some examples here from the vendor bank accounts. So we can see that I made changes to the vendor bank account on this date. Here are the fields I changed. Here are the types of changes I made. So I did inserts, creating new records up here. I have some updates to existing records. We can see the legal entity. We can see the new value that I had versus what was previously there. And then of course, we can see the related vendor information. So we can see who the vendor was for this bank account. We get their ID number and their name as well. We didn't cover this obviously today because we were mostly focused on security management, but if whoever asked this question, if you want to get a demo on data monitoring and all of the full package really, we could definitely set that up.
Awesome, thank you so much. So here's the last question we have. Can we get a full demo on all features?
Yeah, like I said, if anyone would like a demo on a comprehensive demo of ASM, including access control, segregation of duties, data monitoring, we can definitely set that up. We need about hour and a half. And yeah, we can get those going next week or whenever is good for you guys.
Okay, awesome. So once again, if you have any questions, please feel free to put it down on the control panel. And thank you so much, Dave and Christine, for the presentation. That's all we have for today. Thank you everyone for attending the webinar. We'll keep the session open just for a few minutes. So once again, just if you have any questions, feel free to leave it down below, and we'll reach out to you individually.